So here we have these overly feminist women saying, you know what, men are worthless. We don't need men in this world. Women in our lives, if they got caught saying, I need my husband, I need a man in my life, that it would be met with like a little bit of an attack. Oh, no, you don't need men, right? Like it's almost promoted from a social perspective that a woman can't say they actually need a man in their life.
Kipp, what's up, brother? So great to see you. Sounds like you had a good week. We were supposed to connect here in my neck of the woods, but that's hard, man. It's like, man, when you go on vacation, people are like, hey, look me up. Hey, let's get together. And you'd like to with friends, but usually when you go, you already have plans, you have things mapped out. It's hard to do.
Yeah, I appreciate that you see that, because I'm like, damn it, I was literally in your neighborhood and not visiting. And it kind of, I was actually kind of a little bit in a bad mood about it. We had 3 different families. We're kind of coordinating what everyone wants to do. What I should have just done is I'm doing this. Screw you guys. That probably would have been most effective.
You're welcome to come along if you want.
Yeah. Totally. But there's some power to that.
Yeah.
We talk about this sometimes. I've heard you say that so many times over the years, is you want to plan a men's event, you plan it. You set the date. This is what it is. Feel free to show up if you'd like, but this is what we're doing. And far too often we're all like trying to coordinate and appease everybody, and it rarely ever works anyway.
Yeah, it is frustrating. You know, and I also have realized too, most people just appreciate somebody who takes initiative. You know, the guys who are all waffling over where you're going to eat for lunch today and how you're going to plan out the vacation. And even in the dating pool, women are hoping that a guy will make the move. I saw a statistic that 80% or 85% of women wish that men would make the first move, and they don't. They're afraid or whatever else it might be. And it's interesting because 85% of women would like men to make the first move, but they also treat them like crap when they actually make the first move. So which one do you want? Like, do you want the risk of having somebody who you maybe not are attracted to approach you, or do you want them to make the first move? Because if you look, there's a graceful way to reject somebody. Yeah. If you do it with some grace and some class, fine. You don't have to be attracted just because you want somebody to make the first move, but it's kind of speaking out of both sides of your mouth on that one.
Totally. What's the joke? It's not creepy unless the guy's attractive. You know, it's like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. It's the level of harassment is basically contingent upon how attractive the guy is.
Totally.
You know, what I could get away with, Kipp, is significantly greater than what you could get away with. We'll just throw it out there like that.
Absolutely. But it's
true.
Man,
it's true. Pretty interesting. But I think all in all, people are looking for others to take initiative. So it's fine, though. I'm not saying you should have. I'm just saying I get it. I've been there. I've been up to your neck of the woods and not been able to make things work. Not because I haven't wanted to, just because I'm actually just horrible at logistics. That's really what it comes down to for me. I usually let you know about 6 hours before I'll be up there that I'm going to be up there for the weekend.
Yeah. No, well, I didn't do much better this weekend. We'll make it happen, of course. Well, in worst case, I'm going to see you at the Uprising, right? In less than a month. So
you're going to see me at the Uprising. You and I are going to go hunting together this year, which we still need to talk about. So we got some plans.
Yep. We took initiative. All right, I did headlines.
Right, well, let's get into headlines.
Yeah, last week I did headlines first.
Last week? Okay.
So you're up.
All right, so I'm starting. This one comes, it's kind of it's funny, but it's not funny.
It sounded funny.
It's funny, but it's kind of horrific, actually. So this one comes from the National Review. This was a couple of days ago. The headline is this: what comes after transgender? Doctor amputates man's healthy fingers. And I went through the article, since we talked about making sure that you're actually reading the article before you start talking about it and offering insight. And there's a term, and I don't know how new this term is, but the term is body identity integrity disorder, BIID. Of course, there has to be something for it, right?
Yeah.
And those patients obsess that their quote, true selves are quadriplegic or amputees or blind, and they yearn to be made that way. It's a real and anguishing condition. Some are now even calling it calling the affliction transable. So, look, this is the inevitable outcome. All right, the inevitable outcome of taking healthy men and women and mutilating their bodies, chopping off their breasts, chopping off their penises, inverting their penises, and turning them into fake vaginas. The natural and inevitable result of this is that more and more people are going to begin to mutilate their bodies. Now, look, here's the argument. Most people, I think, would probably say what an adult decides to do with his or her body is entirely up to them. I can see that argument. The problem is that becomes so commonplace. And one of the things that we see more often is this, I can't remember the term, sudden onset gender dysphoria. Sudden onset gender dysphoria. And there was a book on it. Was it Abigail Schreier? I'm going to look this up while I'm talking real quick. I think it was Abigail Schreier. Yes, irreversible damage. And she talks about this sudden onset gender dysphoria as primarily being a social contagion. And heaven forbid you talk about transgenderism being a social contagion. Well, now we're getting into amputating healthy digits. Next, it will be limbs. Next, it will be body mutilation. And what we're doing is we're normalizing mental disorders. And then this is going to inevitably inflict our children because they're going to become more and more familiar with it and think that it's part of the deal. I was listening to a news article or a news report the other day, and I can't really quote here, but what the person was saying is that they wanted to turn genitalia into artwork, basically making genitalia both for men and women different shapes and different sizes and different features. It's ridiculous, and it's against the natural order. It's destructive to society. It's dangerous for our kids. And to Abigail Schreier's point, it's irreversible in many cases. You know, if you chop your fingers off, you're not getting those fingers back. You invert your penis and turn it into a fake vagina, you're not getting your penis back. You lop off your breast, sure, you can get a boob job, but it's not the same as having healthy natural tissue for women. It's so dangerous. It's so pervasive, and it's very frustrating. And I think it's just going to continue to get worse unless people are willing to speak up against it and say, "Hey, no, this is not okay." And where's the Hippocratic Oath for doctors? I thought doctors aren't supposed to harm people.
Totally.
You know, but we conflate all of this language, and people say, "Well, what's the big deal with words and meanings change?" If we're doing it in a way to manipulate the language, the problem is things like this. You know, you hear things like silence is violence. No, it isn't. Stop saying that. That's not accurate, because if you tell somebody they're being victimized, I think you brought this up a couple of weeks ago, then they're going to act on it. If you say that gender dysphoria is reaffirming gender identity or whatever the term they use, that's not accurate. That's a euphemism for what is actually happening, which is a dysphoria. It's a medical illness, and it should be treated as such. Oh. So we have to use words in the proper context. We have to use the right verbiage for what is actually happening, because these are potentially medical decisions that are being made not only for grown adults who can make their own decisions, but this will obviously pour down into our children.
Mm. And we should speak out. Oh, adults can make whatever decisions they want. Of course they can. And we should also call people out and go, yeah, that's stupid. And that's dumb. And this is why. And here's the drawbacks. I mean, no different. If I told you I was doing something to my body because of whatever mental issue I had, you would call me out, and yeah, you should. Absolutely, you should. Right? I can't help but look at this circumstance and go, what is this about? What is this about? I don't know about you. I have people in my life that, man, they're victims. They'll make themselves sick. They live in an alternate world of being attacked and unable to survive in life, and all these things are happening upon them. This is just someone manifesting a mindset to make it true for them. They want to be a victim. They want people to feel sorry for them because I think I should be a paraplegic so that way everyone can feel sorry for me. And this just affirms it. It just validates it. What a horrible what a horrible thing to be validating. And that it's this
right,
set,
good point.
And it's this set thing that you're stuck with. Guess what defines you and I, Ryan? Not our limbs. It's how we show up. It's what we do. It's how we serve people. That defines us. But no one wants to have that conversation of what actually defines you as a human and what contributions you're making to the world is one of your values. No one wants to have that. Why? Because that shit's hard. That's why. And it's much easier to sit back and be a victim and to be celebrated to be a victim. And then here we are, we celebrate it, we help them be victims so they can be validated in their sorrows and they're feeling sorry for themselves. It's the opposite of what we would teach our children.
What we ought to teach our children and the people we're dealing with. Get these people, I'm not saying we need to just throw them to the wolves. Get these people the mental health stuff they need, like the access to therapists and like, I'm not saying we just abandon these individuals, but look, if you're a woman and you legitimately think you're a man, not like you're masculine or you're manly or you like things guys like, that's different.
No.
But if you legitimately think that you're a man, there's something misfiring in your brain.
Yeah.
That needs to be addressed, not with reaffirming healthcare, quote unquote, that's the euphemism, but with therapy and the mental help that you need to say, no, you're not. Let's help you learn how to be comfortable with who you really are, which is a woman or a man or, or a fully abled body person. Like, I can't. I get so frustrated with this stuff. It's asinine. It's ridiculous. And then the amount of just placating we do to these people. Everything's changed. Everything, like you have to bend over backwards. You can't say anything. Heaven forbid you have a differing opinion than these people, and the world just loses their mind because you say something. It's ridiculous. We need to speak out more against it so people are familiar with and comfortable with the idea that, hey, no, people are going to say something about it. But I'm going to say something even a little controversial, like bullying. There's a big anti-bullying campaign. Kipp, when you and I grew up, bullying was taking place. Now, look, there's a distinction between a little bit of peer pressure, like, hey, don't be weird. Like, why would that be a human condition? Why would people pick on weird people? Because they're a threat to the culture. Like, you need to conform to what we're doing here, right? That's human nature. And I'm not saying that we should go back to like bullying, because the bullying now is different than the bullying then. But a little bit of peer pressure and say, no, you're weird. That's weird. You're the weird guy. I don't really see anything wrong with that. I think probably more of us ought to say, nope, that's weird. Not acceptable around us. Totally. To straighten some of these people out.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't help but think about one of my sons. This is like, here's your call to action if your kids are in the public school system, by the way. So one of my sons in high school, this is probably about 3 years ago. Have you heard of this? The furries or whatever. Have you heard this term?
Yes.
Yeah.
So another great example of what we're talking about.
Yeah. These kids come to school and they identify like as an animal. And the teachers pander to it because they don't want to get in trouble.
I know. It's crazy.
And they play along. Like, I'm sorry, but if I'm at work or I'm in a school and one of the kids thinks he's a wolf, that's a problem. Like,
yeah, you're fired.
Yeah, that's not normal. It's not good for them, right? But yet we pretend because we don't want to offend. Are you joking? This is more about you than it is them. You want the best for a kid. You don't pander to them pretending to be an animal. You address the issue so they can show up powerfully in the world and be happy with who they are. And realize their value is based upon how they show up in the world and not based upon pretending to be something that they're not. That they don't need to pretend to be something to be recognized and appreciated. You address the issue. Dude, this is a crazy world, man. I'm sorry.
Imagine this. Imagine your, oh, I know, and I do too. Imagine your son comes to you and says, maybe it's your 8-year-old son, and he says, "Hey, Dad, I think I can fly." And you're like, "Yeah, you probably can. Why don't you go climb on the roof and jump off and show me? I'm so excited to see it." And you're all excited because you too think you can fly. The kid jumps off the roof and does a face plant into the ground and breaks his leg or his back or, heaven forbid, kills himself because you affirmed this stupid idea that a child had. I mean, how many of us thought we could fly or dreamed of flying when we were little?
Totally.
It's not reality. So let's operate in reality. Now, there's some things that we can say, hey, you can be anything you want to be, but that's a different conversation than, hey, you can fly like a bird. Probably stay off the cliff and off the roof for a little while.
And this is mentally, and here's the rub. This is mentally unhealthy parents. Because guess what? You think you're special because you got a special kid. And you've bought in to
that's a good point.
You bought into the social construct that you're unique because you have a kid that's pretends to be a coyote. Seriously.
That's interesting.
And you're
I
doing
never
it for
really
you.
considered that. I just assumed it was weakness.
No, I think they're doing it because they've latched onto it, that they're special because they have a special kid.
It's a good point.
Shame on you. Shame on you. All right.
Yep, good point. All right, what's your headline?
Just to get us more riled up, man. So
Let's go, man. Let's get it done.
All right, so here's my headline. So this was probably about a week ago this happened. So The View, I don't watch The View. I don't know why anybody would, because any slight highlights I get of that show, I'm like, did someone really say that on there? And they say some stupid stuff. So the co-hosts were responding to a TikTok trend, asking women if they really need men. Because men are useless, says the co-host Anna. I mean, by the way, I wanted to, and then she says, I wanted to make a distinction between straight men and gay men. Gay men, she would die without gay men in her life. No one can gossip like a gay man. No one can help you accessorize like a gay man. And nobody can help you from doing harm to yourself like a gay man. But straight men, on the other hand, are completely worthless. One woman even said that if it wasn't for her, her husband would live in her filth without her constantly in his life. One even went positive and talked about how her man she couldn't live without because he's a handyman. And it was followed up with a comment of, well, that just sounds like a servant, and you could pretty much hire anybody to do that kind of stuff. So here we have these overly feminist women saying, you know what, men are worthless. We don't need men in this world. And obviously there's many ways that we could talk about this, like the polarization, the ignorance to things. But most importantly, what gets me riled up is how if one of these women on this show, and I would even argue women in our lives, if they got caught saying, I need my husband, I need a man in my life, that it would be met with like a little bit of an attack. Oh, no, you don't. You don't need men, right? Like it's almost promoted from a social perspective that a woman can't say they actually need a man in their life. And this is the drawback of the feminist movement. Most men would never say this, by the way. In fact, I should have had this prepared. It just came to my mind. But I read a study of the amount of men that say they need women versus women need men. And guess what, ladies? Most men say, absolutely, I need a woman in my life. So they're appreciating you. Meanwhile, you can pretend all you want that men are not needed. And it is, and I almost think it's from this city perspective, right? When we think of men as office workers only, and you're like, well, I could think, and then they don't think about who's drilling oil, who's building buildings, who's going to war, all these things that women absolutely choose not to do, and in many cases would be incapable of doing, but we're going to ignore all those things because men are worthless. There you go. It drives me mad.
I mean, look, the only thing that crosses my mind is surprise, surprise, despicable women can't find good men for them to be around. Like that's all I can think about is like, why is it that the disgusting ones, like the gross ones, the vile ones, why is it that those are always the ones who are like, men are horrible? But then on the other hand, you take wholesome, attractive, smart, intelligent, nurturing, kind, caring, empathetic women, and they're like, I love men.
I wonder what the
difference could be.
Yeah.
You know, it's like feminism is disgusting. I mean, it really is. It ruins beautiful women. And I'm not just talking about physical looks. I'm talking about their soul. It steals their soul. It makes them vile. It hardens them against the world and against other people. It paints themselves as the victim. It's a despicable, despicable ideology.
Yeah.
That should not be confused with, hey, we need to treat women with respect and kindness and they can be partners with us as men. I don't say women and men are equal. We're not. Clearly, we're different.
Yeah.
Women are good at certain things that men aren't generally good at, and men are good at other things that women generally aren't as good at. So we're not equal, but in worth, yes, absolutely. But yeah, I'm not impressed by a bunch of hideous, despicable women confused as to why they can't find men worth having around. Why would a man subject himself to that?
Yeah.
Of course he wouldn't.
Yeah.
So if there's a woman who's listening and she's buying into this feminine ideology, just know you're going to die alone and miserable because no man wants to spend any amount of time with you. And rightfully so. I wouldn't. You wouldn't, Kipp?
No.
Of course not.
No.
But beautiful, lovely women who are kind and empathetic and caring and smart and intelligent, that's the kind of person I want to partner with. My girlfriend is one of those people. Like, I want to be around her. I want to spend time with her. Even if we're doing nothing, I enjoy it. I enjoy serving her in ways, and she feels the same, I think, towards me. So this is not complicated or confusing. Women, do not buy into this feminine ideology. It's destructive, dangerous, and it leads you to a path of loneliness and despair.
Yeah, totally. And don't worry, if you choose to follow, you'll get support. There's plenty of support telling you that you're fulfilled.
From other despicable women.
Yeah, exactly. They'll support you in your quest of mediocre, lack of fulfillment in your life, and loneliness. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, man. Well, good headlines. If you guys have any other headlines you want us to address, let us know. For now, let's get to some questions today.
Yeah, so we have some questions from Instagram as well as the Foundry. I'll just kind of be jumping in between all of those. So Jared Jones, I know a guy who is always anxious about everything. And this is actually perfect because I feel anxious now, kind of riled up. Around everything, the state of the country, the world in general, natural disasters, the eclipse, women, you name it. It's something that he's either anxious or angry about. I've tried to talk him about it, but I also try to maintain my distance. I don't want all of the negativity. With the amount of anxious, angry, and negative people in the world, it's impossible to avoid them. But you have to protect yourself and your mindset. How do you maintain a safe distance while still trying to influence positive change among the people and the communities you are surrounded by every day?
You'd show up within the controllables. That's all you can do. So anxiety is fret over something that has not happened yet, right? You're anxious about women, I think he said, because maybe he doesn't know how to approach women. He's anxious about the economy or
natural
the political
disasters.
landscape because he doesn't know how that will affect his business. So it's just fret and worry and concern over something that may or may not happen. It's the future. And I think we ought to be familiar with the future, at least aware of what could potentially happen. But the antidote to anxiety is action. So if you have a lot of anxiety towards the opposite sex, then you need to put yourself in environments where you're spending more time with the opposite sex. That could be talking to the woman at the grocery store who's checking you out for your groceries. It could be the woman at the office who works in the office next to you or the cubicle next to you. And it's not romantic necessarily. You might not have any interest, but you're just familiarizing yourself with talking with women. If you're worried about the economy, then the best thing that you can do is to get your financial house in order, pay off your debt, learn marketable skills, ask for promotion, start a new business, save some money, learn how to invest. If you're worried about natural disasters, then the antidote to that is having food storage, having supplies, having skills that you could use and utilize should you need to. So the antidote, again, to anxiety is always action. It can be taken to the extreme, and you can see that when your action comes at the expense of other avenues of your life. For example, I have somebody in my life, who really got hardcore into prepping. I mean, hardcore. Went down the rabbit hole of prepping. And he ended up losing his job and his family because of it. That's obviously a very shortened version, but he got so immersed into prepping that he lost the things that are most important to him. Okay, that's a problem. That's no longer what I would say healthy action. That's being obsessed, and that needs to be addressed mentally. There's something going on, and that needs to be addressed probably with a professional in that case. Now, to your question, what do? Well, you just focus on the controllables. So if you're worried about how our young children are being raised and growing up, then the antidote to that is get involved in a young men's program. Get involved in sports in your community and coach sports teams. Maybe there's some extracurricular activities through the school district that you can be involved in. Maybe you want to be a part-time substitute teacher, or you want to coach one of the teams at the high school. Or you want to do some mentoring through YMCA or Big Brothers Big Sisters type programs. There are so many options available that allow you to be immersed in the solution to the problem that you see without having to be it rub off on you. You're going to feel good. I know I feel good. I'm coaching my son's soccer team. Man, I feel really good. I'll give you an example, a small example. And it doesn't seem like a big deal, but I should assure you it is. One of our kids, when we were playing soccer last weekend, he got kicked in the face with the ball. Either got kicked in the face or he fell and hit his face. I didn't see it.
Probably
but
both.
He was crying. He's one of our best players. Yeah, maybe both. One of our best players. And he was like, you could tell he was trying to tough it out. I could tell because he's a tough kid and he's really athletic. I'm like, come over here, bud. So I had him come over and I just put my arms around him. I'm like, are you okay, man? I just kind of wrapped him up. I'm like, are you good? He's like, that hurt. I'm like, I know it hurt. I know. I said, way to keep going though. You didn't stop. You waited for a time to address it, but in the moment you just kept going. I'm really proud of you. And then I said, why don't you just sit down for a minute, recover? And he's like, I want to play. I said, I know you want to play and I'm going to put you back in. I just need you to recover for a minute and then I'm going to put you back in. I appreciate your toughness. So he sat down, he got a drink, he was out for a minute or two, and I put him back in the game, no problem. Little teeny moments. How would somebody else handle that? If we're looking at the doctrine of popular culture, it's like, here, come here, you don't have to play the rest of the season, and let me wipe your nose off for you, and wipe your tears down, and yeah, exactly, right? But that's not what's going to help this young man. What's going to help this young man is acknowledging that he did good in the moment, acknowledging that he's hurt, making sure he's not injured, and then get his ass back in the game where he belongs and where he wants to be. There are so many opportunities for that. And what you have to do is focus on the controllables. When you start focusing and pouring a lot of time and energy into resources into the uncontrollables is where you start running into issues. If you're neglecting, for example, your own kids because you're pouring so heavily into this guy because you don't want him to fail, that's your problem.
Yeah.
And it will be your kids' problem. Because you can't control that, but you can control dinner at the table with your kids for the most part.
Yeah.
Focus on the things and go back and listen to the Friday field notes that I just did called When Society is Failing Around You, focus on your own. I'm paraphrasing, but focus on your own. Because I talk about the exact strategies that you can use when you see the decimation and degradation of society around you.
Yeah. One thought for you, Jared, that I heard in your question a little bit is he's around a guy, right, that's anxious and he's stressed out and this kind of safe distance with him, right, to maintain a positive influence, but he also probably wants to be around this individual. I have a couple of people like this in my life that are very anxious and riled up. I just get curious. Remove the judgment in what he's talking about all the time and just listen and see the humanity in what they're talking about and try to understand, like, oh, interesting. That gets him so riled up. Why is that, Ryan? Why does that piss you off so much? Oh, because of this. I'm like, interesting. And just see what's happening. I think we get latched into negativeness and anxiety when we're judging it, right? We're like, oh, well, no, I disagree. And it's like, just be curious and just consider, listen, try to see, understand what they're doing or what they're thinking without the judgment of right and wrong. And it's almost a superpower, I think. Like, it has really allowed me to be around people that see things politically different, and they could be socially charged, and I'm just listening. And I don't even need to speak my opinion and disagree. No, I'm just curious because I'm content, right? And I'm just listening and understanding humans and the condition and what it means to be a human and add meaning to every damn thing. And then when they get emotional, you're like, oh, interesting. What is it about that makes them angry? What does that mean about them? Interesting, right? And just listen, be curious. It's almost a superpower. It allows you to listen to anybody talking about anything and not get riled up. It's fascinating.
I think that's why this podcast between you and I is so good, because you're way more empathetic. If my buddies start doing that, I'm like, shut the hell up. Like, I don't even want to hear it anymore. God, I got enough of my own problems. Like, toughen up. It's not even a big deal. So, and maybe the world needs both, but I do appreciate your perspective on it.
Yeah, and sometimes I just need to say, shut up, right? So.
Yep, exactly.
All right, Why Eagle 101. Conversation on meaning and creating a team for business and life. So he wants us to talk about creating a team for business and life when you're used to solo success.
You say you're used to solo success, but you're actually not. There's no success in a vacuum. Like, you might be attributing it to being solo, but that's not really what's happening.
It's a really good point.
Like, look at your marriage. What, you're saying that you have a thriving marriage because you're really great and she's not, or in business, maybe okay. So here's a great example. I work primarily by myself. I'm here in my house 90% of the time by myself, like, doing my thing, but I'm not solo. I've got you, I've got other people, I've got projects and events and partners, and I've got clients, guys in the Iron Council. Like, none of this would happen without you and everybody else who I just listed. So I think that you're misattributing your success to this lone wolf mentality, and it's just not reality. So imagine this. Imagine if, instead of attributing it to being solo, you started to acknowledge the partners that you have in life, both personally and professionally. And instead of thinking that you're better off alone, you started magnifying the relationships and became more intentional about who exactly you wanted to partner with. Now, all of a sudden, how much better is your marriage, because you're not just operating by default, but you're very deliberate and intentional about understanding what makes her tick and what are her strengths, what are her weaknesses, what do you bring to the table, how can you serve her, how can you help her get what she wants, how can she help you get what you want. Imagine in your business, instead of just worrying about, oh, I picked up a new client today, you started getting intentional about what kind of clients. What exact problems are they dealing with? What exact solutions can you offer? What kind of language should you use to be attractive to those people so you can solve their problems with your product? Imagine at work, maybe you're an employee or even the boss or the owner, and you start looking at your colleagues and your coworkers and you think, man, that guy's really good at X, Y, and Z. I think I need to shift him to a different position. And that person's really good at this, but they're falling behind on this, and I really needed to do that. So I'm going to pour a little bit more time and energy into helping them figure that element out. And then you start putting everything on hyperdrive, because right now it's happening, but you're not even acknowledging that it's happening. Imagine what it would be like if you did acknowledge it, and then you can figure out what partners you need professionally and personally.
I love that. Is there, when you look at creating a team, you particular, what traits are you looking for? What's the ideal team player for you when you think about it, a team from a business perspective?
I mean, a lot. I'm not going to say these necessarily in any order, and I'm just shooting off the hip a little bit here. But capability is one. Is this somebody who's capable of what I need? And by the way, that's personal and professional.
Yeah.
You know, I want a partner who's capable of providing what I need, and I want to be a kind of partner that is capable of providing what she needs. But then professionally, you know, is this somebody who has the skill set required to achieve in what I'm doing? That's one. Loyalty, I think, is important. Is this, and I'm not asking for blind allegiance forever, but I'm asking for some loyalty. I'm asking for somebody who believes enough in me and what I'm doing that they're going to stick around if things aren't always perfect, if things aren't always right, that they're willing to afford me some grace because they're loyal to me and or the mission. I think I'm always interested in somebody who's a team player, who doesn't operate on an island, who doesn't think that they're better, who really values the contributing elements from other people. And then I think probably being a solid communicator is it's becoming more and more important to me.
It's the conduit.
Can this person communicate? And it's not even just communicate all the good. I actually need people in my life, again, personally and professionally, who are willing to tell me the truth about what they're feeling, what they want, what their hopes and dreams are, what I might be doing that they don't like. Like, I need all of it. And it's not always comfortable, but I really, really value a person's ability to communicate everything they may need to communicate, not just the rainbows and the sunshine, but the clouds and the darkness as well.
Yeah, I like it. An additional resource, there's a book, The Ideal Team Player. I don't know who the author is off target. In summary, hungry, humble, smart, and care. Someone that's hungry, they're humble, they're smart, and they care. That's the premise of that book. Another resource for you to look at. All right.
I like that.
Dave Berg, advice for fathers expecting a third son. And maybe this is just advice for fathers expecting a son. I'm not sure if it changes once there's a third, other than you know more, but.
Probably learn the lessons that you messed up on your first and second son. Don't do that.
Totally.
And just when you think you have it figured out, then your third son's going to be the rebel, especially if he's the last. I don't know. I don't know if this is your last, but if he is, you're in for a wild ride. It's going to be fun and it's going to be miserable, but oh my goodness, the youngest, right? Would you agree with that? The youngest?
Yeah. I have
They're
a feeling
always,
he's going to give us a run for our money. Yeah.
I honestly think this is God's trick. Because generally the first kid's usually the best, like the well-behaved, they've got good manners, you know, they're ambitious, not always, but generally.
Yeah.
And God's like, well, I want these two people to have more kids, so I better get them a good one. And then when you know you're done, God's like, all right, I'll get rid of like the other souls that I need to get rid of because these guys are done anyway, so I can just dump this one on this family.
Oh, that's funny.
But you love them, but oh my goodness, I don't know. Look, here's what I would say on a more genuine answer for you is some things I'm learning. Appreciate what they appreciate. Like they may not, and you're probably learning this where you already have two boys. They may not always be interested in the same things that you are, and that's okay. Yeah. Meet them where they are. You know, if they don't like the same sports or even sports at all, and they like technology and video game, that's okay. Within reason, you know, that's okay. Like what can you do to be involved in that world to help them develop and cultivate their skill set? Yeah. I think that's important. Another thing is just spending time with them. You know, it's hard. The more kids you have, the harder it becomes to spend time with them. And what I'm learning, because my oldest is 16 now, I really only have about 2 years of any measurable time with him. Maybe even less, because he's got prom this weekend and he's dating and working and he's sports. And so like I very rarely see him, and it's okay. This is the natural order of things. We have a good relationship and I make time to see him, but I've really enjoyed spending more time with my younger too lately. Because I see that my older boys are moving on, but also I see that my younger kids need me too. So I think making sure you carve out dedicated time for them where it's not like, hey, the 3 boys are going to go out. No, it might just be you and him go out and do things together alone, just you guys. That alone time, even like with my daughter, one thing I do every Saturday is I go on a donut run in the morning. And sometimes the other boys will ask, can we go? No, you can't. We'll get you a donut, but this is for me and her, like nobody else. And when we get in the truck, she's like, hey, can I listen to my playlist? I hate her playlist. It's like my ears bleed when she puts her playlist on. Katy Perry and Taylor Swift and all these other little teeny bopper singers. I hate it, but that's what she wants to listen to. And if that's what it takes for her to enjoy the 20 minutes it takes us to get donuts and come back, then that's what I'm going to do. So carving out dedicated time for my younger children has been invaluable when I do it. I wish I was better. I'm not always great at it, but it is a valuable thing to do.
I think that's spot on. All right, this might need some context from you. So Michael Graham, thoughts on the t-shirt selling talking heads? Do you believe they care, or are they just after a quick buck?
I don't really know like what you mean. Who am I one of? I sell t-shirts, so am I one of those people? Like yeah. I don't really know where the line is on that.
Who exactly he's implying, but I'm assuming just maybe just influencers, right? That are maybe not giving the best advice, and maybe their focus is really just making money.
It could be. You're never going to know that though. We can't know that. So what I would suggest is just support the companies that you like. You know, if there's so for example, well, I'll just use us as an example, and I'll try to sell some t-shirts while I do this.
Talking head.
Let's say that you really like our movement. You resonate with what we're doing. You support what we're doing. You believe in what we're doing. And we offer t-shirts, and you pay $25 for a t-shirt because maybe you like it. Maybe you don't even like it. You just want to support. What a lot of people fail to realize, I'm going to pull back the curtain here a little bit. Believe it or not, even though this is a movement I believe in, it's also a business, and it costs money to invest in camera equipment and lights and reoccurring technology charges like email lists and updating websites and running events and the maintenance behind our Brotherhood, the Iron Council. It costs money. I had a guy email me the other day, and he was like, hey, so I'm thinking about joining the Iron Council, but I just want to know what my money would go to.
My back pocket.
It goes to the business.
Yeah.
And then it goes to me. Like,
why is that?
I've had people ask that. It's confusing to me. Like, where does the money go when people pay for your products and services? Like, nobody asks that in other businesses, but in these kind of businesses, they do.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times people believe that, if it's a mission, it's a movement, then you ought to just be doing it out of the goodness of your heart. Well, I think both can exist. You can do it out of the goodness of your heart and truly believe that you're touching people and changing their lives. And also you can run a very lucrative, profitable business, which is what we're attempting to do. So what I would say is if there's an organization or a movement or an individual you like, throw a couple bucks at them. You know, if they're selling a t-shirt and you like the t-shirt, buy the t-shirt, because they'll be able to keep doing what they're doing. They'll put food on their table. They'll buy some groceries. They'll put a roof over their kids' head. Like, it's fine. And if you think that they're just out to sell t-shirts, and there are people like that who are going to run with a mission. You see it a lot in politics. There's a lot of like political talking heads. And then you could tell they're doing it because it almost doesn't align, right? It's like they might have this mission that they're going to share about who knows what, fitness, for example. And then all of a sudden they're selling memberships or gift cards to McDonald's. It's like, okay, there's a disconnect here.
Yeah.
And like, it's crazy. I see that a lot in the health arena. Like, I've seen people who have built livelihoods on being healthy, whether it's athletes, health professionals, and then they're selling. I saw this with Conor McGregor years ago. Like, he was selling Burger King stuff. Are you telling me that Conor McGregor in his prime of fighting was eating at Burger King? Like, get out of here. This is crazy. And that's how you know it's phony. But when the thing that they're offering is aligned with their service, then I think that gives you a little bit of a litmus. One more example, and then we'll move on because I don't want to beat a dead horse on this. When I started the podcast, I had random podcast sponsors. And there were 2 or 3 things that I was selling through sponsorships, advertising mostly. Sponsorships is a little different, but advertising. It was men's underwear.
Yep, I remember.
Mattresses and business software. And I didn't use any of it.
Yeah, I remember the business software.
Because I don't care. I don't care about it. The business software, the NetSuite, I did use that a little bit, actually.
Yeah.
But the others, I'm like, I don't care what mattress you sleep on. I don't care what kind of underwear you wear. Like, I zero care in the world about that. But now, if you look at our sponsors, we've got Montana Knife Company. I use their knives. I use them every day in the kitchen. I use them when I go hunt. I think a man needs to have a knife. I think having a good knife is a tool that men should have. I believe in that company. I support them. I've been up to their place. M42 Adventures is a company that I helped start to get men introduced and women to the outdoors the way that I was. It's more aligned. So I'm still, yes, making money, but it's aligned with what we're doing. And I think that's a pretty good litmus test.
Absolutely. Bryce, MDC, is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu really effective in real life situations, or does the other person have to play along?
I'm going to think, let me think about this here for a second, because you hear this question a lot, right? The answer is a question, and nobody asks this question. They always defend their martial art. Oh, it's the best because. No, here's what I would say. Compared to what? Right? So if I'm at the bar or out at a sporting event and a guy's drunk and starts harassing me or my girlfriend, am I going to like roll on my back and try to like armbar him? Probably not. I think I'd probably hopefully just disengage. He's a drunk son of a bitch and he's just looking for a fight, and I'm not interested in putting myself or my girlfriend in harm's way in that moment. So I think you have to, or alternatively, let's say a guy actually gets physical with you and you don't know how to do anything. Is jiu-jitsu better than not knowing how to do anything? Yeah. So it just really depends on the situations. Now, from a practical standpoint, of course it's effective. If the guy grabs a gun, no. If he has a knife, probably at some serious risk, right? If you're trying to choke a guy out and he grabs a knife out of his pocket, he's going to stab you in the face.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to, I watched two guys get in an altercation. It was a surveillance video in a garage, a parking garage. And the guys kind of got into an altercation, and one of the guys obviously trained jiu-jitsu, put the guy in an armbar. Guy grabs a knife, he's getting his arm broken, takes it, stabs him 3 or 4 times, kills him. I'm not interested in armbarring a guy. I'm interested in subduing somebody quickly and then getting myself out of the environment. That's what I think jiu-jitsu is valuable for. And that's why I want to hear from you, because it's a little bit different in what I think is more termed combat jiu-jitsu, where strikes and different scenarios get thrown in, which I think there's some value to that as well.
I mean, and absolutely. Like, you could even say, I go to a school that's a comp team. We're training gi only. We're not talking about the self-defense aspects of jiu-jitsu. And is that guy going to be as effective as a school or an individual or a practitioner that's intentionally thinking about jiu-jitsu in a self-defense? That even changes things. The best example that I've heard is this. The best self-defense is remove yourself from the situation. Always. Doesn't matter what it is. And when you can't remove yourself, when is that? When they hold you. That's it. right? If you and I square off, I can still walk away. The only time I can't walk away is when I'm being held and controlled, which means that you and I are now close quarters, which now jiu-jitsu becomes a benefit. So self-defense, number one, is check your ego, walk away. Period. Always.
Right.
And when you can't get away, now jiu-jitsu is highly effective from that perspective because, well, you can't run. You can't remove yourself. You have to deal with the circumstance, and they have hands on you, and you can't move. Works really great from that perspective.
And I would say, Kipp, you correct me if I'm wrong because you're more immersed in this than I am. It works great to either incapacitate somebody. Like, I don't want to break your arm, Kipp.
Absolutely not.
In a fight. I want you to pass out. I want you to hit your head on my fist or the ground, or I want you to pass out. I'm not interested in breaking your foot.
Absolutely.
I'm not interested in breaking your arm.
Well, with adrenaline,
So
people drinking, everything else, absolutely. There's only one submission that is valuable in a self-defense perspective, in my opinion, and that's a choke. That is to make them unconscious so you can walk away safely. That's it. I would never go for anything other than a choke in a self-defense perspective.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's important. And then, but I also think it's important, and maybe I'm being a little hypocritical. I'm not being hypocritical. I see the value in it, but I haven't done this yet. Some striking. I think to know some striking. And I would say striking defense is probably better than knowing strike. Because if I can defend against you striking at me and close ground and get you on the ground, I'd probably win that battle just based on the statistics of how many people train relative to who doesn't.
Totally.
But if you hit me with a haymaker and I hit my head on your fist or the ground, I'm in serious trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the scenario, right? Haymaker means what? That I can still walk away.
Right.
Right. So it's
or getting sucker punched. You're in an altercation. The guy's buddy comes out of the bar and hits you with his fist from the side. You don't even see it. Like, there's so many threats available. Well, Kipp, what would you say as far as, just in the spirit of the question, would you say gi or no-gi is generally better if you were to translate it to being in an altercation in the street?
I think no-gi at first, like surface level, but there are complexities that come with the gi that will benefit your no-gi. I'm this huge believer that they both benefit each other, because in no-gi you're all rash guards. No one can hold on to anything. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you get in a gi and someone can pin you and you can't move.
Can't move.
You have a jacket on, someone's going to pin you fairly well, right? So I think both you need to deal with. No-gi probably represents it a little bit better than gi, but I think I would always train both. The other thing that crosses my mind, or that I wanted to share to your point, is whenever we had Jason, I haven't been part of very many fight camps for very many MMA fighters. One particular fighter that I've always been part of his fight camp for the most part is Jason South. He had like a 10-0 record, solid fighter. We would Shark Tank him, 4-ounce gloves, and we would strike, and we'd do jiu-jitsu. And man, nothing checks the pureness of your jiu-jitsu as when someone can tee off on your face. Totally. It changes everything, and it's so valuable. It was so enlightening. Like, I had these moves that I were like, oh, this is my move. And I like realized, yeah, that's not going to work. I can't do that move with someone striking me. Or I got to be in, or I have to be out. I can't rest in certain areas. If I rested, I'd get hammer fisted to the face. And so if you're training, dude, just get a couple guys in the gym. Everyone agree. Fridays at noon, we're all wearing 4-ounce gloves, and we're at least tapping each other in the face as part of our training. It would enlighten and make your jiu-jitsu so much more pure. It really will.
Yeah, I agree. I train primarily gi, but I would agree with you that you're going to be, I'll say it this way, you'll be better at no-gi if you train, you'll be better at gi if you primarily train No-Gi than you would at No-Gi if you primarily train Gi.
I agree. Because
So
you don't know how to
say
hold
that in,
someone
like,
without grips.
That's it's the principles.
Yeah.
That's the difference. If you know how to pin somebody and hold them and subdue them without holding on to their clothing, you're going to be better when you do. But if all you can do is train and know how to hold on to somebody with clothing, it's going to be harder when they don't have the jacket or the pants that you hope they would be wearing like they would on the mats.
Yeah.
I do have one more question for you. I've got a couple of questions recently about guys who they don't have a jiu-jitsu gym near them, or either that or they don't have the time to be able to travel or whatever it may be. There's just some hindering factors. What would you say to a guy who's listening to this and maybe he's never trained, or maybe he wrestled in high school, or, you know, whatever, and he's like, hey, maybe we can get some mats. We can just invest in some mats in the garage, and 4 or 5 of us could get together and learn, like, off YouTube or from like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or one of these other places that maybe has a program. Do you think that's a wise thing to do, knowing there's not really like a brown or a black belt there to help instruct and lead?
Absolutely. I would. Like, if I didn't have, knowing what I know now, if I didn't have instruction, but I had a person and I had grass, I would train. Absolutely. Something is better than nothing. And to be frank, you're not getting the full skill set of that black belt anyway when you first start, right? You're getting the blue belt lesson anyway, you know, so you don't need as high level, you know, training. And then I would supplement that with a road trip. You know, it's like maybe you have a garage, Gracie garage, that you're working, a handful of guys, and then be intentional and say, hey, we're going to drive up to whatever town once a month and go hit open mat on a Saturday, you know, and of course, cool. Call ahead of time.
Guys trip.
And get some training in with people in the school. Absolutely, I would.
I did that a little bit with a good friend of mine, Brody Cousineau, when I was in Maine. I would train in the evenings too, but I wanted to train in the morning. I wanted to train 5 days a week. So him and I would go train 1 to 3 days a week in the morning. And we were both white belts at the time. And I was promoted to blue belt. And so it was just me and him, and we would beat the shit out of each other. I mean, we would go, he was super strong. I just started getting a little better just because I was putting more time in. That's really all. He's way more athletic than I am, way stronger than I was. But I just put a little bit more time in. So it was interesting. You could begin to see the disparity. That gap widened. Yeah. But even still, that time with him, learning and just rolling with him in a way that was unorthodox and, you know, not like all the other guys trained in the school, was invaluable to me.
Yeah. Well, and you know this, one of the early and greatest lessons that you get from training is the feeling of what it's like to have someone control you, and dealing with the emotion
and how exhausting it is,
and the exhaustingness of it, and not wanting to give up, and just dealing with it in itself is probably one of the greatest lessons.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, cool. What's next?
Simon Tony, what is your opinion on slow living? Thank you so much for what you do. And I don't know what slow living is. I'm hoping that you know what that means.
I can take some guesses. Yeah. I don't really know that term. I don't think I've ever heard that term. But if I had to guess, I would, I would say, you correct me if I'm wrong if you find anything, Kipp, but I would say that it's just slowing down the pace of life a little bit, maybe not taking on so much. There's probably an aspect of minimalism to it as well, getting rid of all the stuff and the clutter and the chaos and the nonsense, reducing the things that you have, and just, you know, maybe it's living off grid a little bit to some degree, or having a way to escape from technology. And I think all of those things are amazing. If that's what it is, I'm a fan. Yeah. I think that is hugely important. Did you pull it up?
Yeah. According to the vast knowledge of the internet, meaning of slow living is a mindset whereby you curate a more meaningful and conscious lifestyle that's in line with what you value most.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
Of course. If that's the definition that we're using, and I think in order to do that, it's the things that we just discussed. Eliminating chaos, eliminating clutter, removing certain people from your life who bring an element that shouldn't be there. There's tasks and projects and business ventures and this and that probably shouldn't be involved with. I also think it's really important to be intentional and deliberate about your life. I plan in quarterly segments, so I know what I want to accomplish over the next 90 days, and I reverse engineer everything into that end result over 90 days. So what do I need to do today in order to accomplish that? And what do I need to eliminate and get rid of in order to accomplish that as well? We're actually talking about that in our Brotherhood, the Iron Council, this week. Last week, we talked a little bit about study. This week, we're talking about digital distractions and how you can reduce distraction, clutter, noise, chaos, so that you can focus more on the things that are relevant and pertinent to you. Yeah. 100% on board.
Yeah.
If that's the definition we're using, yep.
Yeah. Dan MCN, new dad. So congratulations, Dan.
Congrats.
6 week-year-old twins. So six weeks.
Ooh.
I feel responsible.
Boys or girls, do we know?
I don't think so. Nope, just twins.
Okay.
I feel responsibility when I'm home to always be doing something to help my girlfriend with them, feeding, bottle washing, diapers, other baby stuff. Other responsibilities around the house are piling up. Work is sometimes demanding, and my fitness, which is very important to me, is getting put on the back burner because of any time I have to work out, I end up doing baby things. I like spending time with them, but I feel responsibility as a man. My responsibilities as a man are getting pushed aside. I feel anger and resentment building. How can I better handle and approach this?
Yeah, everything you're feeling is normal. There's a lot of overwhelm. I haven't had twins, so I don't know about that. But
I assume it's worse. Yeah.
I've got 4 kids. Yeah. So everything you're feeling is overwhelming, not only because of your responsibility towards the kids, but because the responsibility you have towards your girlfriend. I mean, one consideration that came up for me is how committed are you in this relationship? I'm not saying you need to get married, but I'm actually really curious. Is this like a committed long-term relationship? And what does that look like as the twins get older and as you guys build your relationship? I don't want to overlook that because I think too many people are having kids in non-committed relationships. I'm not saying that's your scenario, but that came to mind as I heard my girlfriend. Yeah, something to consider. What I would really do in this scenario is talk with her about what you just said to us. Hey, hon, I feel an immense sense of responsibility towards the twins, towards you. I want to be here. I want to serve you. I mean, I commend you for even bringing that up. Like the fact that you want to serve her, that's what we ought to be doing. And so you tell her that, and then you also say, but I also know how important it is to get my workouts in. I also know how important it is for me to make sure that I'm providing for our family, so I'm not always here and available as I would like to be. How do you think we can handle that? My proposal is that I'm going to work out Monday through Friday from 5 a.m. to 6, and then I'm going to come home and I'll be here from 6 to 8 or 6 to 9, whatever your schedule allows. And then I'll go into work, and then I'll come home and I'll be fully present here with you. Like whatever your dynamic is, I'm just using that as an example, but whatever your dynamic is, include her in the process because she wants you to be happy. She wants you to be fulfilled. Like she wants you to be in shape. She wants you to make money. Like your guys' goals are aligned. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that because she's stuck at home with the kids, and she might even say things. Here's something you hear a lot from new moms. Well, you're out having fun all the time, and I'm stuck here with the kids. And of course, that's not what you're doing. Yes, you're going to the gym to take care of yourself. And yes, you are socializing with other people through work and lunches and things like that. But she's going to feel that way if she's stuck at home, right? If she feels that way. So I think just be empathetic to that. No, it's a season. It might just be a season. Maybe you don't do 5 workouts a week. Maybe you do 3. Wow, because they're only 6 months. 6 months or 6 weeks?
6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, brand new into this thing, right? Yeah. So she's making adjustments. You're making adjustments. It's going to be hard. Just keep the lines of communication open. Tell her you want to be there and support her. Tell her your things are important. And also, third key, tell her things are important. So, hey, hon, I got the kids for the next hour or 2. They're napping right now. Like, if they wake up, I'll take care of it. I don't know if she's breastfeeding or I don't know any of that. But there's things that you can do to take care of them. Say, hey, why don't you go take a nap? Or do you think you and your sister would like to go to lunch today? I can come home on my lunch break and watch the boys for an hour. So serve the boys, serve your family, serve your needs, and also make sure that you're serving her needs, that those are met too.
Yeah. Just to reiterate what you're already saying and maybe said a different way, where most people go wrong is they sit back. And I'm like, well, I want to be here. And then well, maybe we'll both hang out with the kids, right? And we're not communicating. Don't make any assumptions. Get black and white, put it on the table. Hey, I still want to get workouts in. How do I do that in a way that I'm still supporting you? Do you want to get workouts in? How do I support you so you can get those in? And let's identify kind of some roles and responsibilities and schedules. And we kind of shy away from it because we're afraid that like there's meaning to it, right? It's like, no, like get clear. It doesn't make sense for both of you to get up all night and feed babies. It doesn't. So get clear. Who's going to wake up at night? Who's not? Who's going to get rest? If you both wake up because you both want to support each other, that's not going to work either, right? So
that's dumb.
Yeah,
that's
like define some roles and divide and conquer a little bit to make sure you're both winning and supporting each other.
Yeah, I never understood when my ex and I were in the stages where she was breastfeeding the babies. It was clear that she got up at night. I'm not able to do that, contrary to some people's belief. Men can't lactate. I'm not able to do that. So why should I be up? I have to get up at early and go into work. And that was the agreement that we had. That doesn't work for everybody. But if a woman is breastfeeding, I mean, that makes sense. There's nothing I can do in this moment. So let's work around that a little bit. There's also something that I've called task stacking. So I don't know if I like the term task because it takes away a little bit of the humanity behind it, but working out is a task. Like it's something that you want to do. It's a thing that you want to get done and complete. And also, so is spending time with your girlfriend and your children. Those are tasks. Again, it takes a little bit of the weight and the humanity out of it, but I think you understand. So maybe instead of working out, to go back to that scenario, 5 days a week, maybe you do 3 days a week in the morning, but every Tuesday and Thursday, you guys go for a walk in the evening. And that serves everybody. The kids are getting outside. They're getting some vitamin D. Your wife's moving. She's recovering from pregnancy and delivery. You're feeling good because you're moving your body and you're burning some of those calories. And all of a sudden, you're checking 2 boxes off. Valuable time. Man, what an incredible opportunity to have conversations with her, expose your kids to the elements outside, which is a good thing, and get your movement in the process. Look for little moments like that.
Well, and we've talked about this probably a number of times over the years, but you may have to change your expectation of working out is. At least for the season. True. And I can't think of a better way than you dropping and doing 20 push-ups on the top of every hour. That's 1 minute. Try that first. You can't tell me you won't have a good chest day if you're doing 20 push-ups at the top of every hour all day long. Trust me, you'll have a great chest day. So there's ways. You might just have to compromise a little bit too and let go of the ideal way you want to work out and make some pivots.
You know, one thing that I can't believe these words are about to come out of my mouth, but it's true. One thing I wish I would have learned and done when my kids were early, in those early years like you're talking about, I should have cooked more for my ex-wife.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I should have done that. Like that would be an opportunity for me to
really help,
add value, to serve the family, to learn a new skill, to let her sit down with the baby. Even if she's got the babies on her arms and stuff, like at least she's sitting there and she's not up like cooking. I could have done that. I didn't do that. And so there are things around the house, whether it's things like loading the dishes or deciding to vacuum or straighten some things or do the laundry or cooking, and I don't know your dynamic, but if those are things she normally does, go ahead and take those on. You can do those and you should do those. That's a great way to help.
Yeah. All right. Last question. Joey Degura, starting point for building an online business. Kind of vague, but
open your social media accounts. I mean, that's the place. That's where everybody is. Look, it's important to have a website and have your products and services on offering and things like that. But if you open up your website and you're not really figuring out how to drive people to the website, it really doesn't matter how great or wonderful the website is or your product or service or offering is. Yeah. So what I always suggest is you have to first go where people are, and then you invite them to the things that you have going on. You can't invite people you don't know. Yeah. So where are they? They're on social media. They're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, podcasting platforms. And then from there, so you're going to start talking about, you're not going to sell. Okay, that's the thing I don't want you to do yet. Like, you're not selling. You're just explaining problems, explaining interesting things that center around a coherent message.
Yeah.
Then you start inviting them to your space, which is your website or your podcast. And you really want to capture their emails, because now you can start going into their homes because they've invited you into their home, and you can say, hey, look, here's something to think about. Here's something to consider. Here's something you can learn, or here's something you can laugh at today. And then what I do is what I call cross-pollinate my social media accounts. So it's really, really important that you get everybody on Facebook over to Instagram, and everybody on Instagram over to TikTok, and everybody on TikTok over to Twitter, and everybody on Twitter over to YouTube, and everybody on YouTube over to your podcasting platform. The more that you can cross-pollinate these things, the more people are going to see you in different contexts and different mediums and have a greater affinity and connection with you. But yeah, social media is where it starts, because that's where everybody is.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think, I don't know if this is valuable to add, but I've seen this too often where everyone goes, I have this great idea. I'm going to make a website. And then they're like, it's going to happen, right? It's like, no one's going to go to your website just because you have a great idea, right? So whether it's your social media or other means, you have to generate traffic. So figure that out. You can have a great product, a great site, great online store. It doesn't matter. But if people don't know about it, then that's not going to work. And of course, you can go the SEO route. You can go social media ads. But there's also something to be said for vetting what you're selling. If you can't have success from a minimal perspective, then the probability of you just opening up a website and generating tons of sales is going to be really low. So vet it somehow without just like dumping tons of money into ads and SEO. You need to confirm that there's a market for what you're trying to sell.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, man.
Cool, man. Well, why don't you bring us home today, Kipp?
Yeah, absolutely. So the key thing, you connect with us on X and Instagram at Ryan Mickler. Of course, you can join our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/group/Order of Man. To learn more about the Iron Council, we're actually currently closed, but you can sign up for the Battle Ready program. That is a self-paced program that will actually prepare you for joining the Iron Council. To learn more, go to orderofman.com/battle ready. And of course, you can get your latest Order of Man swag at the Order of Man store. That's store.orderofman.com. Anything else?
That's it. Okay. Sounded like you had more to say. You got it all.
Well, I was going to bring up the full disclosure and authenticity here. I forgot the URL for the adventure stuff.
M42 Adventures.
M42 Adventures.
Yeah, M42 Adventures. Yep.
And that's the number 42.
Awesome.
So the number 42 adventures.com. Excellent.
That's right.
Okay.
Cool. All right, guys. Appreciate you. Great questions today. As always, hope we gave something for you to consider and chew on and make your life better. That's what we're about, giving you the tools and resources you need to be a better man. So go out there, take action, become the man you are meant to be.